Sometimes, all it takes is one. One shot could determine the entirety of the rest of the fight. And all it takes to lose that one shot is the wrong attachment on your gun. Fuck. If it would have had a scope, I would have had him. That's right. Today, we will be talking about attachments. The main focus of today's video is to take a look at the best way that Fortnite can improve attachments, so that they aren't as ignored or as hated as they were in Chapter 5. Before we start the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can do more of these videos in the future. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Chapter 1. Attachment without permission.
In Chapter 5, when you obtain a gun of green rarity or higher, it'll automatically have one or more attachments equipped to it. These attachments aren't actually completely equal chances. On multiple gun types, there is a preference for certain attachments to be equipped. For example, the Striker Burst Assault Rifle from Season 4 has a much higher chance to spawn with a scope than it does without one. So, while it's not completely random, what attachment you get on your gun, it is still random. So what that means is, no matter what gun you pick up, it will be different every single time. And in any game, randomness is not good from a competitive standpoint. Not only is the gun you get out of a chest a random type of gun, but both its rarity and attachments are also random as well. There are 16 different attachments in total, so you'll never know exactly what you will get. And that would be fine if the attachments did not significantly alter the gun, but they do. The most egregious example has to be scopes. If a gun has a scope, it removes the bloom when aiming down sights and gives the gun pinpoint accuracy. However, certain scopes are more zoomed in, which hinders tracking and recoil control, such as the thermal scope and the 4x sniper scope, which, when attached to an assault rifle, significantly changes the recoil and limits your field of view, allowing for you to have a harder time tracking opponents. So the main issue with this feature is that it is automatically equipped and you have no choice in the matter. You could pick up a shotgun and be a person who does not like a scope on their shotgun, and you could get a scope on your shotgun that you get at the start of the game. And then, unfortunately, you are stuck with whatever attachments are on that gun until you can get to a weapon modification bench. So the main issue with attachments in the early game is that you have no way to change them, and you are stuck with whatever is on your gun. And they each and every one of them could just completely change how you play the game. You could have a drum mag on a gatekeeper shotgun, which would be fantastic. That would be amazing. If you had that gun, that'd probably be your shotgun for the game, right? But you could also get a thermal scope on your striker rifle. So either way, you have a chance of either getting a very terrible attachment or a very good attachment. So not only does this signify that there's an issue with attachments, that some can be bad and some can be good on a gun, but it also signifies that it's not smart for them to start out with attachments. But all of this leads me to
Chapter 2. The solution.
Here's what I would change about attachments if it were up to me, as to balance the fact that attachments in the early game are so poorly done. What I would do is, instead of having attachments spawn on guns, I would have attachments as a separate item. And then, from there, using that separate item, you can equip them through your inventory. Whether that be through a crafting menu, or that be just sort of like a drag and drop kind of deal. No matter what, I think that it would be much better if they dropped as chest items. A separate item. It doesn't take up your cosmetic slot. It's just a new item, like when they added gold to chests. So it's a separate fourth thing that you would obtain when opening a chest. You can then use those attachments on whatever guns you have, or decide not to use them if they would affect your gun negatively. So, from two standpoints, this is a win-win. The first win is that people who do not like attachments on their guns won't ever have to put one on ever again. The second positive is that you would not have to go to a mod bench. However, if mod benches still have to be a thing, then they can still make the items a thing as well, and remove the gold cost and make it so you can only equip when you have the attachment in your inventory. Now, the other thing about mod benches would have to be accessibility. If they want to keep the attachment system in Fortnite, I would highly recommend putting one mod bench at each POI that is open the entire game, as that would encourage people to use the attachment system more often.
Chapter 3: Poor Balancing.
So when I call this section poor balancing, that's not to say that I think that every single attachment is poorly balanced. It's simply that they're either overtuned or undertuned pretty often. So let's start out with the basics. There's the drum mag, and then there's the quick mag. Between the two, most of the time people will take the drum mag, because what does it matter if you could reload quicker if you could just kill them with an extra couple bullets? Then if you look at the scopes, you have 4 different options, with 2 of them being realistic options, and the other 2 sort of being thrown to the wayside once DMRs and sniper rifles were removed. They're just not the type of attachment that you would put on an assault rifle, unfortunately. So for the underbarrel, you have attachments such as the vertical foregrip, which improves ADS recoil and spread. You have the laser, which improves hip fire accuracy. And then you have the speed grip, which increases movement speed while aiming, as well as the angled foregrip, which just helps you aim down sights faster. And out of all of these, none of them are particularly useful. I know that the laser was really good on the Thunderburst SMG, but the vertical foregrip was usually your option just to minimize recoil. So honestly, why would you ever pick any of the others unless you were doing a sniper rifle? You would pick the angled foregrip, but there has never been an occasion where I've picked the speed grip, just because it's just underpowered. It really is. And then finally, you have the muzzle brake and the suppressor. And see, this is another case of one is just obviously better, and that would be the muzzle brake. I understand that the suppressor might help out in some occasions, but why would I trade reduced recoil for just making my gun silent in a game where silenced guns really don't change anything? Most of the time, even if you're shooting with a silencer, people will know where you're shooting at them from anyways. So it's really not a game where suppressors are quite as advantageous as some other games. So that's just something to keep in mind. And none of these modifications really change the way that you play with the weapon besides the scopes. So arguably, they haven't added anything of meaning by putting these attachments in. They haven't done anything cool like explosive rounds, or maybe one gives you pepper while you're holding it. They haven't done anything creative like that. They've sort of just stuck to, oh, this will change one stat of your gun ever so slightly. So none of these are particularly needed. It's just scopes. Scopes are really the only thing that you will ever care about when attaching to a weapon. So it makes you wonder why they even did attachments in the first place if they're really not going to affect almost anything.
Chapter 4: The Solution Again.
And then next, that brings us back to the solution again. And the simple solution here would be to add more attachments. Add interesting things like a fire attachment. Maybe that could be a muzzle attachment. Add maybe a sort of like a twin mag. Everybody loves the twin mag weapons. Why not add a twin mag as an attachment? I'm honestly surprised they never end up doing that. In fact, the only time that they added attachments was in Season 2. And then once we hit Season 3, they gave up on adding attachments. So it really is a question as to will they be there in Chapter 6 or will they not be? Something else that you could do, as I mentioned earlier, you could give people pepper when they have the weapon in their hands. You could, maybe you have a slap canister. When you shoot somebody, you receive slap briefly. You could do interesting things like that. Think about this like how they did augments, and then take those concepts and turn them into weapon attachments. But that's just me. That's what my thoughts are on what they could do to improve the system. And then finally, the only other thing that we have to talk about is the sacrifice of hit scan for bullet drop and attachments. So this is an issue that's been covered by a lot of people, and I've only given my 2 cents on this a couple of times. It was mostly on stream. So here's my official statement on it. I believe that bullet drop is a terrible decision. When you are aiming down sights without a scope, you fall at a very, very strict disadvantage to everybody else, because if you don't have a scope on that weapon, you are both having to deal with bullet drop and bloom. And having bloom and bullet drop will affect where your gun shoots a ton. So you're going to be shooting to the left, but also down. And you really can't interpret for that. So that's why I feel like it's a very poor decision to have both bullet drop and bloom. So if none of the guns had bloom, it would be perfectly fine. You could totally do that if every gun didn't have bloom. But that's just not realistic, because Fortnite is a bloom-based game, and it always has been. So what this really comes down to is the perfect solution to this is to bring back hit scan and then make recoil patterns a thing. So make the recoil patterns less random and more of like a learning curve. So as you get better with the recoil patterns, you can indeed melt people. And I understand that aspect is why they removed hit scan and switched to bullet drop. However, at the exact same time, you could make these bullet patterns pretty difficult, and then you could keep bloom, and because it's hit scan, it won't matter. And when you don't have a scope, you won't be penalized with as much recoil, and I think that's a fair trade-off. That's my opinion on recoil, and that's how I would deal with recoil. Outside of that, I believe this should be the end of the video. I think I gave some pretty fair statements here. If you haven't already, as I said before, I highly recommend subscribing. I'll be making similar high quality content that hopefully gets better as we get going here. Also, don't forget to like the video, as it helps put us in the algorithm a little bit more, and comment down below what you think I should talk about next. Thanks for watching. This has been Sidonix, and have a good one.